kitchen. So one of my favorite things to make are gum paste flowers, and I realized that it had been a while since I'd added any to the channel. So for this week's video tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make these really pretty cosmos flowers. Now these are perfect for a birthday cake or a wedding cake, or to incorporate with other gum paste flowers. So let's get started. Okay, so the things that we're going to need in order to make our cosmos flower is, first of all, I've got some floral paste or some gum paste. So I've just got some different shades here, so you might want to make your flowers in a light pink, or I've got this dusky pink here. I've also got a small amount of yellow. I've got my PME veiner board. Now if you don't have one of these, it's absolutely fine. I will just be using this to roll out my petals, but if you don't have one, I'll show you how to do that also. I've then got my foam board, some edible glue, my rolling pins and my ball tool, some 24 gauge wire. Now this one I've just cut into lengths of around 4 inches. You'll need 9 pieces of that for each flower. I've then also got a Cosmos flower petal cutter and my Squire's petal veiner, some tweezers and my metal tools, a number 2 piping tip just with a very small circle on the end, some floral tape and just some stamens, a variety of different shades of petal dust along with my paintbrushes, and lastly I've just got a few spoons and also just a little pot here where I've mixed just a small amount of caster sugar and granulated sugar. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to work on are the petals. Now the Cosmos flowers have 8 petals and they're all exactly the same. So I've just got my veining board here. So as you can see, it's just got this groove cut out, so as we roll over it we'll get a wider section to poke the wire into. I've also got my veiners and my petal cutter along with some edible glue. So I'm just going to take a small amount of that gum paste and just place that on top of one of the grooves. I'm then just going to roll this out so it's as thin as I can get it. When I peel that back, you can just see that we've got this raised triangle of gum paste. Now if you haven't got one of these balls, you can just do this by hand. So instead of rolling it on the board, I'm just going to use a small rolling pin and just start to roll out my gum paste. Now when my gum paste is around 3mm in thickness, I'm just going to roll down the sides, leaving a triangle in the center. So just smooth out the right side, the left side and the top. And when we're finished, as you can see, we're left with a raised area of the gum paste, which is almost identical to how it's created on the board. Now the only reason that I use the board is just to make it slightly quicker. I'm just going to turn that over so you've got the raised area on the top, and just use my cutter and just cut out one of those petals. Now to make this look more realistic, I'm just going to bring in my foam mat and my ball tool and just run that around the edges just to thin those out, but we want to stop before they start to ruffle. I'm then going to pick up one of my wires and just run my fingers along the end just to create a slight curve at the bottom. Pop the end of that into some edible glue and just push that wire into the raised gum paste. I'm then just going to make sure the end of that petal is stuck firmly to that piece of wire. I'm then going to bring in my veiner. Now this one is just in 2 pieces, so I'm just going to line my petal on top and just push that veiner onto the petal. And when I take it off, you can see we've got this really pretty veined leaf. So all I'm going to do is just hold the wire and just slightly bend on that, and I'm just going to bring in one of my spoons and just lay that in the spoon to dry. So all this is doing is just creating a slight upward curve. So all I'm going to do is make 8 identical ones of these. Okay, so once I've created all 8 petals, I'm just going to set these to one side just until our gum paste has hardened. So the next thing that I'm going to do is work on the center of my flower. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is take the pot of sugar. So this has a combination of caster sugar, which is slightly finer, and some granulated sugar in there, and I've also got some of my stamen. Now these are double-ended and I just want to make these look like they're covered in pollen. So I'm just going to take some of my petal dust. Now I've just got an egg yellow here and a primrose, and I'm just going to pop a small amount of these into the sugar. I'm just gonna shake that pot around so that that sugar gets completely covered. I'm then just going to use a paintbrush and just paint the end of my stamen in a combination of 2 shades. I'm just going up about 1/2 centimetre just because we will be cutting these off. I'm then just going to make sure all the stamens are lined up and just dip the end of those into the edible glue just so the tips of those are covered. I'm then just going to push those into that pot of sugar, and as you can see, the ends now look like they're covered in pollen. So I'm going to do exactly the same to the other side. I'm then just going to pop these to one side just to let that edible glue dry and for the sugar to stick to the stamen. So I've then just got a pea-sized amount of gum paste which I've coloured in this yellow, and I'm also going to take the last of my wires. So with my wire tools, I'm just going to create a loop at the end, and this is just going to allow the wire to grip onto our gum paste. So I'm just going to roll the gum paste into a teardrop shape. I'm then going to pop the end of that wire into some edible glue and just push that into the end. I'm then just going to roll that gum paste onto the length of wire so that I know that it's stuck, and just pull off any excess. I'm just going to push that onto the surface just to make that top end flat. I'm then just going to take a piping tip. Now this is the number 2 piping tip, just with a tiny circle end, and I'm just going to push this into the end of that gum paste, creating small dents. Now once that's completely covered, I'm just going to take some tweezers and I'm just going to go in and pinch parts of that gum paste, pulling it out just to give it some texture. I'm then just going to bring back in that yellow petal dust and just brush that all over the top. I'm then just going to bring back in those stamens that we created, and just by using some scissors, I'm just going to cut off the length of those. I'm then just going to pop a piece of that edible glue just onto my plate, and just using my tweezers, I'm just going to pick up the stamen and just pop the end into some edible glue. I'm then just going to push this into the edge of my flower center, and all I'm going to do is just go around the edge, just creating a ring of those stamen. So as you can see, we've just got this outer ring on the edge, and you can see all that sugar that's looking like pollen. I've then just taken a really small amount of foliage green petal dust and a very tiny paintbrush, and I'm just going to go in and just on the bottom of some of those stamen, and also just brush it on some of those raised parts. There we have the center of our flower. Okay, so here I've got my 8 petals and they have all dried, and I've also just got a plate here which I've just put some petal dust on. So I've just got some dusky pink, some rose pink and a small amount of violet. Now the Cosmos flowers come in all different colours, but all I want to do is just have these ones slightly darker at the centre and just go in a little bit lighter. So I'm just going to dust some of that dusky pink just onto the ends, and then just bring some of that rose and the violet in the centre. So I'm going to do this to all of my petals. Okay, so now all my petals have been coloured. All I want to do is just get my wires in the right place. So we've got the wire coming down here, but where it ends at the bottom of my petal, all I want to do is just bend that back at a 90-degree angle. I'm then going to bring back in the centre of my flower and just place my first petal up against it. So because of the shape that we made the centre, the petal is just going to sit underneath and just come up from the middle. So for the next one, I'm just going to hold this in place and just pop this underneath the first one. I'm then going to do exactly the same and just work my way around, and I'm just going to pop the last one in that gap there. Now I'm going to make sure that all the petals are pulled right the way up to the top. So I'm just going to take my green floral tape. Now, just to stick this, I'm just going to pop a small amount of water just on the end of my fingers and just put that on the end. I'm then going to pull out that floral tape, and this is just going to activate the gum and just make it stick to itself. And just start winding it around and then just work my way down the length of that wire. And once I get to the bottom, I'm just going to tear that tape off. Now, some of these may have moved slightly as we were winding the wire, so I'm just going to move these. All we're trying to do is just keep the petals quite flat but also curved up at the end, which was why we dried them in the spoons. So once your petals are evenly spaced out and you're happy with how they look, here we have our finished cosmos flower. I've got the darker pink, which I made in this video, and I've also got some examples of a lighter pink with a dusky pink center, plus a brighter pink with a fuchsia pink center. Now, I've just teamed these with some filler flower buds, and I'll put a link in the description below if you want to also see how to make these. I've also got a variety of different gum paste flower tutorials on my channel, so if there's some other flowers you want to see how to make, then don't forget to check those out. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and will find it useful if you want to make your own cosmos flowers. If you have, then don't forget to give this video a like, and if you'd like to see more videos like this, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel. You can also hit the notification bell next to the subscribe button, and this will just alert you every time a new video is uploaded. So until next time, bye!